This is the VanMoof S3. I've had my fair share of rideable experiences over the last 10 years, and I first heard about this Amsterdam-based company VanMoof back in 2016. I actually did a live stream test ride of their bike at my previous job at Mashable. Fast forward 4 years, and the company recently released its third generation of e-bikes, the S3 and the X3. In this video, I'm going to focus solely on the S3. All of its smart features, and just how much fun I've had riding it around the city for the last few weeks. And of course, where I think they can make improvements. Let's start with the design. The S3 comes in two colors, a powder blue and a gunmetal dark gray. There's minimal branding on this bike, which I like. No huge logos plastered on this thing at all. Just on the crossbar underneath the seat, embossed in the brake mechanisms, and in a few other places. To me, this bike feels premium. From the materials they use to the construction and ergonomics of this thing, it all feels really well built. The S3 is a relatively big bike, especially for a person my size. It's got 28-inch wheels, and the standover height is roughly 2.8 feet or 862 millimeters, which is just a hair too tall for someone like me. They say the S3 is designed for people 5'8 to 6'8, and I'm right at the lower end of that cutoff. And that's where the X3 comes in for smaller people, but this is the bike I reviewed, the S3. When you look at the S3, you wouldn't immediately know that it's electric, but when you get closer, you discover there's a handful of electronic components hiding in plain sight. There are two buttons, one next to each grip on the handlebars, that have different functions depending on the state of the bike. More on these buttons later. The grips themselves are not the traditional rubber grips that wear after a while. These are a different material, and after miles of riding, they never left residue on my hands. The S3 has an embedded screen. It's a dot matrix display that when riding acts as a speedometer and has a battery indicator. It does a bunch more that we'll discuss later in the review. Under the pole that houses the display is where you'll find a reset button, the charge port, and a speaker. The 350-watt hub motor is in the front wheel, and the cable gets fished into the bike frame to keep it hidden. Other than that, the only other exposed cabling is for the hydraulic disc brakes, which are also fed through the bike, keeping the aesthetic clean and minimal. And I just want to point out, the brake's pinch point is really small, and even if I purposefully tried to get my skin caught, the edge is rounded off and smooth, unlike other bikes. It's a small attention to detail, but I appreciate it. The bike comes with a kickstand, which is a nice added bonus. The seat definitely hurt my rear end for the first few days because I'm not used to sitting on a bike seat, but it's soft and is adjustable if you remove the rubber cap. The bike comes with fenders to protect from splashes, which is also a nice added bonus. And VanMoof says you can ride this thing in the rain. After all, they are an Amsterdam-based company and it rains a lot there. It's got an integrated headlight and taillight, and I like that the headlight is part of the frame itself, so even if you turn the handlebars, the headlight will point forwards. You may have thought that this was a fixed gear or single speed bike because of the chain guard, but in fact, this bike has an electronic gear switching system, which VanMoof calls an industry first. I just want to mention the unboxing experience for this thing. I picked up this fully built review unit from the showroom in Brooklyn, but when you buy this bike, the unboxing and setup process is pretty cool. I'll leave a link to the company's unboxing video in the description. It's great. Anyway, the S3's frame is akin to a traditional road bike, but when I look at this thing, I see a really well-designed, sleek bicycle. I've had the S3 in the studio for about 3 weeks, and I've had a mostly positive experience each time I went for a ride. I took the bike to pick up food, I rode along the West Side Highway, the East River Park, and up to Central Park multiple times. I used it a handful of times to commute to and from my apartment to the studio. Like I said before, for someone my size, the S3 is a big bike. It barely fits in the elevator here, so I have to wheelie it in and out. Or I could take the stairs, but it's not exactly ideal to carry a 46-pound bike up and down the stairs. It's not impossible, it's just cumbersome. But once you're outside and on the bike, it's a joy to ride, and that's by design. Let me explain. It feels like the S3 is designed specifically to make riding as smooth and effortless as possible with the help of electricity. There are 4 pedal assist modes, 1 being the least powerful and 4 being the most. And you can cycle between them using the app, or when the bike is stationary and pressing and holding the right button. I think it's just me, but I didn't find pedal assist mode 4 to be mind-blowingly powerful. Don't expect to climb to 20 miles an hour instantaneously just by pedaling, but you definitely feel the motor help you climb hills, for example, which this bike does well. The bike automatically, electronically changes gears for you. There's no way to manually toggle between them. It depends on how fast or slow you're going. And you can fine-tune the switching in the app to specify the speed at which the gears will shift up or down, which is pretty cool. It wasn't perfect. I felt it sort of like click or snap if I pedaled too hard sometimes, but otherwise it was pretty seamless. It was something I got used to very quickly. And then there's the accelerator. No, it's not a throttle, which by definition is used in engines to constrict or obstruct the flow of fluid. It's the button on the right of the handlebar. The bike has to be moving and you have to be actively pedaling for it to engage. The boost button doesn't work if you're not rotating the crank, even if you're moving. For the most part, I held the button down the entire time when riding the bike because I like to go fast. Would it be cool if the boost button worked without having to pedal? Yeah, but it feels like this bike encourages riding and rewards you for doing so. Overall, riding this bike feels pretty effortless because of the electronic gear shifting, the pedal assist, and the boost button. Think of it this way. It doesn't feel like you have to work very hard to reach the top speed of 20 miles an hour or maintain it. The bike does most of the work, and that is the point. I do wish this bike went faster though. Sure, you can pedal hard and reach speeds above 20 miles per hour. I hit 30 on a downhill in Central Park. But it feels like the bike actively keeps you at that top speed, which to me feels a bit slow compared to my boards that go 25 plus. Other things about the S3, the brakes are incredible and super responsive, giving me confidence to be able to stop at a moment's notice. The bike also runs really quietly. There's no noticeably loud motor hum or anything like that. The S3 has a digital horn that can be programmed to make one of 3 different sounds using the app, and you activate the horn by pressing the button on the left of the handlebar. It's not as loud as the whistle attached to my helmet, but the sounds are pretty distinct. The S3 is also pretty easy to ride no-handed, especially when you're riding like 15 miles an hour or faster. It's just something I wanted to point out. All right, let's talk about the app and what you can do with it. It's got 5 tabs along the bottom. The leftmost tab shows you on a map the last known location of when your bike was connected to your phone and how much charge it has. If you're not near the bike, you won't see the yellow unlock button. You can unlock the bike by pressing the giant padlock button, and then you have 5 seconds to physically roll the bike so it unlocks. The next tab tracks all of your rides and shows you the date, distance, top speed, and how much battery you spent. The middle tab is where you can tweak most of the settings: the pedal assist mode, gear switching, the lights, the horn sound, that kind of stuff. You can also unlock the bike with one touch thanks to Bluetooth proximity. You just walk up to the bike and it knows it's you. And you can change how close or far you have to be before the bike detects your presence. The little chat icon tab is a support page with a bunch of how-tos, in case you ever get confused on how to perform a specific action with the bike. And then the rightmost tab is your profile. Okay, now that we've gone through what the app does, I want to show you the display and more of the bike's smart features. And yes, you can totally use the bike without your phone. Firstly, I want to show you how to lock the bike. There's a kick lock on the back. You line up the white lines and tap the button with your foot, and you'll hear a physical click sound as well as a digital lock sound, and the display will indicate that the bike is locked. To unlock the bike, press and hold the left button, and you can enter the unlock code, which you can program when you first set up the bike. Once you enter the password, you'll see the unlocked padlock and a timer. You have 5 seconds to physically roll the bike to unlock it. And you'll know it's unlocked because it'll show the boot sequence on the display and make a startup sound, which is very similar to the shield recharging sound in Halo 3. Then, like I mentioned before, the display acts as a battery indicator and speedometer when you're riding. The S3 has a 504 watt-hour battery that's embedded in the diagonal pole, but it's important to note that it's not removable. So when it comes time to charge, you have to bring the bike up into your house or apartment with you. When you plug in the bike, it makes a cool charging sound and the display indicates that you're charging. As far as battery life goes, I never actually managed to drain the S3 completely. I went on rides upwards of 15, 20 miles with plenty of hills and still had about half the battery left. But remember, I hold down that boost button the entire time I'm riding. The website says the S3 has a range of 60 kilometers to 150 kilometers, which is about 35 to 90 miles. But if you're like me and have a heavy thumb, your mileage will certainly vary. Put it this way, I was riding as fast as I wanted and never experienced range anxiety. And yes, if your battery dies, you can ride this bike normally, but it won't change gears, so you're stuck in gear 1. Okay, now that we've gone through just about everything the S3 has to offer, I've kind of saved the best feature for last. When the bike is locked, if you touch it or try to move it, the S3 growls at you and shows you an animated skull on the display. This bike has a built-in alarm system. If you keep messing with it, it'll enter a second phase of alarm and start flashing the lights and make even more noise. Then there's a third phase of the alarm that notifies you and the company that your bike has been stolen. And here's where it gets interesting. The VanMoof S3 has GSM inside, meaning it's trackable. Every bike has a unique frame number tied to their security system. Once the bike has detected that theft has occurred, the tracking system engages and starts pinging cell phone towers to indicate its location. The company has a theft service that you can sign up for when you buy your bike. They guarantee that they'll get your bike back within 2 weeks of it getting stolen. If the bike hunters can't find it, they give you one of equal value. The service costs $340 for 3 years, or you can bundle it with a maintenance plan for $590 for 3 years. VanMoof actually has a series on their YouTube channel of their bike hunters in action, and it appears they've been able to recover a bunch of bikes. It's worth checking out these videos regardless of whether or not you're buying a bike. They're pretty nuts. Full disclosure, I did not actually test these anti-theft features here in Manhattan for obvious reasons. This is a $2,000 bike that doesn't belong to me, and I certainly didn't want it to get stolen. Anecdotally, I did speak with a gentleman while filming the bike here, and he told me he had his VanMoof stolen, and the company wasn't able to recover the bike, so they gave him a replacement. But the process took over a month, and the company advertises 2 weeks. So just some food for thought. If it wasn't clear from what you've watched so far, I really like this bike. It's packed with smart features, it's really well designed, and it is fun to ride. My biggest drawback is definitely the speed. It'd be easy to recommend this bike if it went 25 or 28 miles an hour. But if you don't care about speed and want something that'll get you from point A to point B and only requires like 25% of the effort you'd normally have to put in, definitely consider a VanMoof. They have stores in many countries and in a few cities here in the United States. So book a test ride if you're seriously considering spending the money. I think the theft service is a no-brainer purchase, especially if you're already spending $2,000 on a bicycle. And VanMoof, or VanMoof as they pronounce it, if you're listening, consider adding an active brake light. When I brake, the taillight should illuminate brighter, like it does on a car. I wonder if they can just add this with the software update, but we'll see. Also, it'd be nice to add your own custom horn sounds in the settings, instead of the default 3 to choose from, but I can see how that would easily be abused. And while we're doing wishlist items, it'd be nice to get a push notification or if the bike made a sound when it was done charging. Also, it'd be neat if somehow the kick lock was on both sides of the bike because depending on how you lock it up, the kick lock might be a bit out of reach. But those are very specific nitpicks that I found after using the bike for a couple of weeks. Other than that, my time was very well spent with a VanMoof S3, and I'm gonna miss having one in the studio. Congrats, you've made it to the end of the review. Subscribe to my channel for more electric mobility vehicle reviews like this one. And thank you for watching.